Hi, it's Bea with Crafting Daily Dips. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got an alternative for the February 2023 paper pumpkin kit called Sunshine and Smiles. This starts out as a gatefold card with a message panel on the back, and then when you open it up, it reveals a rainbow on the inside. Now you'll recognize that most of these pieces are from the kit. I did add a cloud border here as a die cut, but it also works if you leave that edge plain. The other place that I added a die cut was for this sentiment label, but again, you can cut that as a regular rectangle. Besides that, all we need is a little extra cardstock to create a new card base. If you'd like to learn how to make this card, stay tuned. Now here are the supplies that I'm going to be using for this card. Let's begin with the ones that come from the kit. So I've used the card base that has the rainbow design on it, and I'm just using the inside of that card, so I've just cut it in half. I've trimmed the width of the rainbow panel down to 5¼ inches so that it's going to be more narrow than the window panel from the kit that is going to go on top of it. And then I've also used the one that has the rain design. So I cut off the inside part of the card and then I cut that in half horizontally. So each piece is 5½ inches by 2⅛ inch. Now, if you don't want to use that second card base, remember that this kit coordinates with the Rain or Shine suite. And in the Designer Series paper, there's this pattern that is very similar. So you could use that instead and just cut it to these same measurements. Now this is the insert, the window insert that comes as part of the kit. The width of it is 5⅜ inch and I've left that intact, but I've made it shorter than the original. I've cut off strips like this that are a little bit more than ½ inch. I'm aiming to get the final height here to be 3⅛ inch so that it will fit nicely in the card. In the end then, we have 5⅜ inch by 3⅛ inch. Now I'm using that hill die cut because I didn't use it for my other alternatives, but that's optional. You can also just use a strip of old olive or green pizzazz cardstock here if you want to have the same look. I've got 3 of the cloud die cuts and that cute little turtle, and then I'm using some of the raindrop embellishments. The card base I'm using is Smoky Slate. It is 5½ inches across by 8½ inches in height, and it's been scored at 2⅛ inch and at 6⅜ inch. This is going to give us a gatefold card just like this. This label has been cut from basic white thick cardstock using the All That dies because I like those rounded edges. But lots of other label dies could work here, or you can cut a piece that is about 2½ inches across by 1½ inches in height. I have a message panel that I'm going to put on the back of the card. This is basic white cardstock and it is 4⅔ inch by 3½ inches. That's just the size that I frequently use for my message panels, but you can make it smaller or larger if you prefer. Now I have 2 pieces of basic white cardstock. Each of them is 4½ inches in length by 2¼ inches in height. And then they have a score line horizontally that is 1/2 inch from the edge. Now you can leave these as is, but if you have the basic borders die set, it's really fun to add a cloud border. And so if you have that die set, you can place those clouds close to the top there, not the scored edge, but the other one, and go ahead and cut it out. And this is what that looks like. I love that extra touch, but if you don't have the die, it's still going to work for you to leave the edges plain. And now we're ready to get started. We'll begin with the little bit of stamping that we're doing for this project. I'm stamping my sentiment with Memento Tuxedo black ink onto the top of this label. I'll put a sentiment on that message panel on the back. Notice that I put it diagonally on the block so it will fit nicely since this is a longer stamp. And I'll add a sun stamped in Mango Melody ink from the kit. We're ready to put this card together, starting with the inside. I'm using Stampin' Seal here, but you can also use glue. And since we trimmed a little bit off the width, you are going to see a slight border on either side. Just make sure that the top and bottom edges don't get stuck in the crease when the card is closed. Next, I'm going to add my shutter panels, and I've gone ahead and folded back along those score lines. So it looks like this. Now I'm going to reinforce this with my bone folder. I'm going to put glue along this tab. And then I'm going to straighten this out temporarily, and I'm going to put it right next to the crease. It doesn't matter which side. I'm going to start here with the left, but you could do the other side instead. And I'm just going to push that in so that it is as far into the crease as it can go without bunching up. And I'm going to hold everything down flat. This is the top side of my die cut here with those nice rounded edges. And then my glue is exposed here on the tab. I've centered this, and now I'm going to press down the front of the card onto that glue. And press that down and give that a chance to set up. Once it's set up, this is what it's going to look like. Now I'll do the other side in the same way. Put glue all the way to the crease and all the way to the edges. Flatten out the piece and push it into the crease. Make sure that you're centered as best as you can, and then press down the front of the card onto that glue. Now I want to attach this piece, and I'm going to put a thin strip of foam on either end here. Now you could use the dimensionals because they're very easy to cut. So they're too wide like this, but just take some scissors, and I'm using spare ones here so that I don't get my good snips all gummy, but you can just cut right through them. And you can see that I've cut them up in all different kinds of ways. You can also use the foam adhesive strips, which are pre-cut to 1/8 of an inch. Or I really like to use the foam adhesive sheets, which come in big sheets, and then I just cut them down to the sizes that I need. So these have been cut down to 1/4 of an inch. I'm trimming them down and then adding them to the back of this window panel. And now I'll add this to the card. So I'm just going to remove some of the backing, or at least start to. Kind of peel that back here. And then what I'll do with my piece is I'm going to set it on top of one of these cloud panels here. And then I'm going to close the card so it's kind of riding along in the crease between the cloud panel and the front of the card. So it's just hanging out there. I'm centering that. And then I'm going to close this down. So you can already see how that cloud is going to open up when the card is opened. Now I just need to tuck the other cloud panel down, and I can go ahead and remove the rest of the backing that I started out here. I left myself a little tail, and I'll go ahead and remove that and gently press this down. Same thing on the other side. So now my window is ready to go. Once I know that everything fits and is working nicely, I'm ready to finish decorating this card. I'll start by putting the back message panel on. I always like to check and make sure that I'm not putting it on upside down. Now these two pieces are going to be used to decorate the front, so I'm just checking to make sure that I've got them lined up properly. I'm using glue here because I want to put adhesive over the whole thing, but you can also use the Stampin' Seal. Now I'm nearing the end of my glue bottle, so even though it looks like I'm putting on a lot, it's really not because there's just barely anything left here. With glue, you don't want it to be too much because then your paper might wrinkle. Since I can still make little adjustments before the glue has fully set, I'm using my fingers to pull down on this piece here to scooch it down just a little bit further. Next, I'm going to put on the sentiment label as well as the turtle. And what's going to happen is that this sentiment label is going to be attached to the top flap, and then the turtle is going to be down here on the hill, but it's going to be raised on dimensionals so that this label can be tucked in basically underneath the turtle's head. That's going to help to keep our gatefold card closed. So right now I'm just deciding where I want that to be. I'm centering that horizontally and then just trying to figure out how much I need to put in. So I think that looks like a good amount. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold my finger behind here because I want to remind myself to only put glue on this top section here that's going to be attached to the top flap. So again, centering that horizontally, and I'm going to check on the back to make sure that I don't have any exposed glue. I'll let that set up. And then the sentiment is going to create a background for my turtle. So now I'm going to add some dimensionals, but just to the bottom part of the turtle. I want there to be enough overlap so the label can be tucked in, but not so much that it's going to be hard to pull it back out. Once that's set up, I can go ahead and add my clouds and my raindrop embellishments. I'm using the putty end of my Take Your Pick tool to help get the embellishments off and then adjusting them with the pointy end. There's our finished card. We've got a cute scene on the front and room for a message on the back. There's a place to tuck our panel to help keep the card closed, and then when it's opened, the clouds part and there's a beautiful and fun surprise. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this dose of creativity. If you get a chance to try out this project, I would love to see it, so share it in my Facebook group or tag me if you're sharing elsewhere. If you're interested in Paper Pumpkin but don't yet have a demonstrator, you can find my subscription link as well as all of my other links in the description box below. I hope to craft with you again next time, and until then, have a great day.